that the day before Joe Wieskamp's contract would be guaranteed for another year, he was waived by the Toronto Raptors. So, why was he waived? What are the Raptors looking for, and who might replace him? Let's talk about it now. If you haven't seen Joe Wieskamp, the Raptors actually got the extension date the Raptors actually got an extension on the guarantee date for his contract. He was supposed to be in around late June, but they extended it to July 18th when Joe Wieskamp's multi-year contract would become guaranteed. You guys don't know how these multi-year contract works. He gets a contract till the end of the season that he's playing when the Raptors picked him up a 10-day contract. They gave him multi-year contracts, so he gets the end of the season, and then he gets a non-guarantee for the next season, which he tries to earn in the summer, earn in summer camp, whatever. In this case, it was for him to earn it in the summer league, and ultimately, as we saw, he did not. What was unfortunate about giving Joe Wieskamp that guarantee to the end of last season was that he took a roster spot away from Jeff Dowtin. Jeff Dowtin obviously would have been a significant part of the team for the end of the season. The Raptors weren't able to play him as much because he had a cap on the amount of NBA games he was allowed to play, which was 50 because of his two-way contract. As a result, the Raptors could not use him in their final few games of the season. And most importantly, perhaps, they could not use him in the play-in tournament game against the Chicago Bulls. Maybe if he gets a bit more minutes of somebody else who played poorly off the bench, things go a little bit differently. But regardless, Joe Wieskamp is no longer with the Raptors. So they extended the guarantee date when they had to commit to that to July 18th because they wanted to see the player in Summer League. And unfortunately for Joe Wieskamp, he had 27 points in the Summer League finale against the Golden State Warriors. That was pretty impressive, but the damage really had already been done from the first few games of Summer League. There was one game where he was a DNP, but ultimately Joe Wieskamp really struggled in Summer League. Here's a guy, with all due respect to Joe Wieskamp, here's a guy where really all he does is shoot the basketball. Like his job really is to shoot the basketball, make threes. And he's a very talented three-point shooter when he's open. Now, players like Joe Wieskamp, they kind of remind me of Matt Thomas, where, they're exceptional shooters. Defenses have to care about that. But if he's not able to get that shot up, well, there's not many ways he can affect the game in other senses. Like you watch Grady Dick. The Summer League roster was completely abysmal for the Toronto Raptors. But Grady Dick, if he got run off the three-point line, and this is, a lottery pick, so different levels of talent. But if Grady Dick got run off the three-point line, okay, here's a pump fake, step in, mid-range jumper. Here's a pump fake, step in, find a player for a pass. Or maybe he cuts inside, cuts to the rim, and gets to the rim instead. Joe Wieskamp just doesn't really have all these things in his bag, so it's very easy to take away what he did. And even in the brief time that he played for the Toronto Raptors, he got like that one spell of minutes against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and that was enough for the Raptors to commit to the player. But it's only 9 games of a sample size. We don't have much to go off of here, but averaging 1 point in just under 5.6 minutes on 25% shooting from three isn't the most remarkable thing. He fell out of any sort of favor whatsoever. I'm trying to find his totals here. 3 of 12 and 3. I mean, it's a small sample size. I really can't put any stock into this, but this is a player that after getting drafted 41st overall by the Spurs, got waived, and now another team has decided not to commit to him long term. So he's got good size, 6'6", but ultimately there's not enough in his bag in other senses to be able to affect the game. So what is Wieskamp? Where is he going to go next? I mean, this is a player who I think has a future in the G League. And is a player as well who's still relatively young. So, sure, he can find some more spots. He's only like 23, 24 years old. And in the G League, he has been impressive in his career thus far. With the Raptors 905 this season, he played 10 games and averaged 13 points. Was also efficient from three. Has always been near 40% shooting from three. He played a showcase with Wisconsin. Had a good spell with Wisconsin as well. So everywhere he's been in the G League, he has had success and he's continued to develop. But there are definitely a lot of things that Joe Wieskamp is going to have to do to manufacture himself an NBA career. But let's not really worry as much about Joe Wieskamp and his deficiencies, why necessarily he didn't get to a consistent NBA level with the Raptors. Let's also talk about what the Raptors are going to do here. So I think it was the right decision here. As far as shooters go, You need shooters, but this was not a guy that was going to crack your NBA rotation. You're going to lean very heavily into Grady Dick, and you would much rather use that summer camp spot on a player who you believe has a better shot of making your roster. It would have been nice to see Joe Wieskamp in the training camp. Would have been nice to see him in preseason. Just the nature of the full guarantee. They didn't want to commit to that money, even though it's like $1 million for the upcoming season, when they weren't confident that he was going to make the roster. It was exactly like, was it a year ago, where the Raptors waived Armoni Brooks, who we thought, hey, Armoni Brooks probably could have made the roster. It's just like, we don't want to give him the guarantee for the upcoming season. So you have to move on from the player, and that's just the way it is. So some exciting players can certainly come into the team. I mean, last year when it came to the offseason, like, you never know who's going to excite you, who's going to be a good player. Jeff Doughton really came out of nowhere for the Raptors and turned into like a player that had a like decently sized role relative to where he was signed from. He had a decently sized role for the Raptors in the season. So maybe we can find a new player who kind of ticks those boxes and surprises us with the season. And I think that player that has now had a roster spot completely cleared up for is Moses Brown. Moses Brown has been kind of the one that got away, or the one we've been waiting for a number of years now. 2 years ago on this channel. I'm not sure if he ever cracked a thumbnail, but he certainly cracked a topic of conversation in a video on this channel, because he was coming off of time with the Dallas Mavericks, he was coming off some time with the Oklahoma City Thunder, where he had a pretty productive year with the Oklahoma City Thunder in his second NBA season and had potential as a 21-year-old and a really big, lengthy 21-year-old. So we were wondering, hey, this is a player that, can we find a way to sign him in the offseason? Can we find a way to get this guy onto our team? He could be an exciting player for the future. We're willing to put him in some trades, potentially, to actually trade for the player. And ultimately, he has never been able to lock down a consistent role anywhere in his career so far. It's actually stunning to look at his basketball reference profile here, because the player has only played 4 seasons in the NBA thus far, and the Raptors would be his 7th team in 5 years. He started out with Portland, barely got any minutes in that opening season. Like I said, a decently productive year in his second year with the tanking Oklahoma City Thunder. I believe they were tanking that year. 8.6 points per game, 8.9 rebounds. Then other than that, failed to lock down a consistent role with the Dallas Mavericks. Failed to lock down a role with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Failed to lock down a role with the Clippers, and really didn't really get anything with the Brooklyn Nets. So the Raptors gave him an opportunity in Summer League. Very weird for a 5th-year player to actually end up in Summer League. But you kind of have to remember as well that, okay, as much as it's weird for a player like Moses Brown, his 5th year, to be in NBA Summer League, maybe we should look more at ages rather than years, because Moses Brown is only 23 years old still, despite all that wealth of experience. And Markquis Nowell, who's a rookie, is also 23 years old and is only slightly younger than Moses Brown. So sometimes it's also important to consider age rather than years in the league. But Moses Brown, I'd say, was impressive in Summer League. I'd say, like, hey, it was a horrible roster, but he was one of the bright spots. Markquis Nowell had some good things to say about him. And I think especially if your plan is to put Markquis Nowell in the G League and have him work on his game develop in the G League, you want to give him the tools to succeed. The Raptors front office is excited about what Markquis Nowell can do as an undrafted free agent, so give him the tools to develop in the G League. So give him a rim-running center who can add a lot of size and be a significant lob threat to the amazing passing of Markquis Nowell, and give Markquis Nowell a very adept pick-and-roll partner. Moses Brown can 100% provide these things for the team, and really there's no excuse at this point. He's coming off of your Summer League system where he was moderately impressive, albeit on a bad Summer League team. Give him the opportunity in training camp, because the roster spot is now open here. And you know what? More roster spots open in general. So give Moses Brown the ability to play for your G League team this season. I mean, if he wants to play in Summer League for us, then maybe he wants to stay with the organization. So that makes a ton of sense for the Raptors to go and explore. But other roster spots in general could open up that maybe of players that we haven't heard of, like Gabe Brown was the Exhibit 10 guy that we brought in last season. And these open up at the expense of Joe Wieskamp. And the reality is, I mean, it's always sad to see a player get cut. You always wonder what their next steps are going to be. Are they going to have an NBA career after this? We just don't know when it comes to players like that. But the reality is, he didn't look good in summer league. And like, if you want to be in the NBA, because Joe Wieskamp has had NBA experience, like, you gotta look too good for summer league. And he just didn't. Like, he just didn't, except for that one game against the Warriors. Like, he was just downright not good in the first few games of summer league that he did get playtime in. So the only thing is, you really got to put it on Joe Wieskamp. You know, wish him all the best. But the Raptors are going to take care of business as an organization. I would love to give Moses Brown an opportunity, and I think it was the right call to give to waive Joe Wieskamp. If you actually watched my video yesterday on Amateur Hour Sports, I mentioned Joe Wieskamp. I kind of cooked Joe Wieskamp and said, he did score 27 points. And then there was a quick flash of text that said he's still getting waived. And a few hours later, ultimately, he did get waived. But what do you guys think? Let me know in chat. Do you think it was the right decision to waive Joe Wieskamp? Do you think Moses Brown's a good replacement? Would love to hear all the thoughts over there.